Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Jai Om Vishnupad Purnamansa Pariprajapacharya Stotra Shri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Sridhar Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kundigiri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadip Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamana Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari Bol. Welcome to all. Thank you very much for coming, especially Welcome to Haridas Prabhu and Lalit Prasad Prabhu and Meena Devi. And welcome again to everyone. We're reading from Caitanya Caritamrta, Adi Lila 147. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shikaguru ke tajani Krishnera Sharupa Antarjami Bhakta Shrestha Edvirupa. One should know the instructing spiritual master to be the personality of Krishna. Lord Krishna manifests himself as the Supersoul and as the greatest devotee of the Lord. Purport. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami states that the instructing spiritual master is a bona fide representative of Sri Krishna. Sri Krishna himself teaches us as the instructing spiritual master from within and without. From within, he teaches us Paramatma, our constant companion. And from without, he teaches from the Bhagavad Gita as the instructing spiritual master. There are two kinds of instructing spiritual masters. One is the liberated person, fully absorbed in meditation, in devotional service. And the other is he who invokes the disciple's spiritual consciousness by means of relevant instructions. Thus, the instructions in the science of devotion are differentiated in terms of the objective and subjective ways of understanding. The Acharya, in the true sense of the term, who is authorized to deliver Krishna, enriches the disciple with full spiritual knowledge and thus awakens him to the activities of devotional service. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupakada Mahyam Tadhati Shapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jatapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Shagrajatam Shahagana Raganatan Vitam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Shahagana Lolita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinavandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kamshana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hori Priye Vansha Kolpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindho Bhyevacha Patita Nam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Shikha Guru ke tajani Krishner Sharup, Antaryami Bhakta Shrestha e Dvirup. We've heard before that there are two kinds of spiritual masters, the spiritual master who initiates and the spiritual master who instructs. So now Kaviraj Goswami is speaking further about the instructing spiritual master. Krishna Sarup, he's directly Krishna. As we've heard, Sakshad Haritena Samasta Shastra. It's Krishna who appears before the disciple as the initiating spiritual master and as the instructing spiritual master. Krishna appears in two forms, as Antaryami, the super soul, and as Bhakta Shrestha, the best of the devotees. So it's Krishna who teaches us from within as the super soul, and from without as the spiritual master. There's a very significant purport in the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita as it is. I was just looking at it today, where Srila Prabhupada says, I could call it up, but I've got it from memory, I think. Srila Prabhupada says that whatever the devotee does is perfect because it's like dictated, that wasn't the word Prabhupada used, but like that, directed by Krishna from within and confirmed by the bona fide spiritual master. Originally, the text in the abridged Macmillan edition said everything he does is perfect because he's directed by Krishna from within. And on the galley proofs, Srila Prabhupada penned in and confirmed by the spiritual master. So it's significant that although Krishna is within the heart as the super soul, as our constant companion, as the instructing guru, we may not always be able to hear very well from the super soul. And therefore, Krishna appears again externally as the spiritual master. So the same Krishna is there giving the same instruction to become Krishna conscious, but from within as the super soul and without as the spiritual master. Then Srila Prabhupada says, and interesting, from without, he teaches from the Bhagavad Gita as the instructing spiritual master. It's not independent, but as Krishna is instructing Arjuna, the spiritual master is giving the same instructions that Krishna is giving to the present disciple. Then Srila Prabhupada says there are two kinds of instructing spiritual masters. One is the liberated person, fully absorbed in meditation, in devotional service, and the other, he who invokes the disciple's spiritual consciousness by means of relevant instructions. Thus, the instructions in the science of devotion are differentiated in terms of the objective and subjective ways of understanding. Those are instructions that are perhaps, my sense is that Srila Prabhupada is referring to particular terminology here and particular terminology and a particular understanding, which he hasn't really elaborated on here or elsewhere, as far as I can recall. So the best I can do at the moment is just to repeat it, that there are two kinds of instructing spiritual masters: the liberated person fully absorbed in meditation on devotional service, and the person who gives relevant instructions to invoke the disciple's spiritual consciousness. I don't have, if anyone has greater insight into this, then please, by all means, feel free to speak up. Yes, here's the purport, 1858. The person in Krishna who acts in Krishna consciousness is free to act because everything is prompted by Krishna from within. And that's where Srila Prabhupada added and confirmed by the spiritual master, very significantly added that. But Srila Prabhupada didn't write very much it didn't revise very much on the galley proofs. There's one place in the same chapter where says the devotee merges into Brahman in a verse, merges into the Supreme or something like that, and Prabhupada changed it to realizes. And then there was this change. These are the only two revisions he made in chapter 18, and very few elsewhere. So significantly prompted by Krishna from within and confirmed by the spiritual master. Anything on that?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I hope you can hear me okay.
Quite well.
Thank you. When I hear this this paragraph, it makes me think, of course, of the different kinds of instructing spiritual masters. And my understanding since my early time with the devotees is that for those of us in ISKCON, Srila Prabhupada is everyone's instructing spiritual master. I don't know that I've heard Srila Prabhupada himself state that anywhere, and I was wondering if you had any further understanding on this you'd care to share.
Yeah, I find I have difficulty with that little piece of hardware, to tell you the truth. The GBC issued a paper saying that Srila Prabhupada was the predominant guru of everyone. Well, no. First, they said the predominant, something like the predominant guru of everyone in ISKCON, and then revised that to saying, I think, preeminent Shiksha guru. And I've never quite understood on what grounds we could declare that as a sort of principle of ISKCON. I'm much more comfortable with the statement that Srila Prabhupada is the founder Acharya of ISKCON, which is what he said again and again and insisted upon, in fact, should appear on everything the society prints, that he's the founder Acharya, which to me is the perfect formula. He founded ISKCON, and he's the Acharya. He sets the example. He's the first teacher. All of that works perfectly in my vision. The founder, he's the founder and the founding teacher and the exemplar, and that's a unique and exceedingly significant position. But then, so I don't understand actually why we need to create this idea or this designation that he's the preeminent Siksha guru of everyone. I'm out there in Nevada or some remote part of the world, and some preacher comes and introduces me to the Mahamantra and introduces me to the philosophy and awakens my Krishna consciousness and trains me. And then at some point we introduce this idea that Srila Prabhupada is his preeminent Siksha guru. Now, why is the person who gave him Shiksha and brought him to Krishna consciousness not his preeminent Shiksha guru? He's performing all the functions that a Shiksha guru would have. And for the disciple or the person who's the aspiring devotee, he may be more immediate than Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada is a person that he never met, that he's seen in some films and heard some tapes of, whom he respects immensely, but who doesn't have that sort of immediate connection with him as the person who says, now go wash your hands, now shave your head, now, wear neck beads, now chant, now stop this, now do that. And who's awakened in him the desire to be Krishna conscious and to follow what Srila Prabhupada has taught. For me, that person is a Siksha Guru, and I don't see the need to say, well, yeah, he is, but he's not the preeminent Siksha Guru, except for some, what shall we say, managerial purpose. To be very direct about it, gurus who get in trouble cause trouble for the society. And what are we going to do about that? Well, we're going to lessen the importance of the guru. We're going to bring him down 10 notches so that if he says something different from the management or falls down, it's not going to crash the society or a big chunk of it. So how do we do that? Well, we elevate Srila Prabhupada, not elevate him, but we point to Prabhupada's elevated position. And then we say that the GBC is right next to Prabhupada. So if your guru leaves, you still have the GBC. Or if the guru says something strange, you still have the GBC. Because they're representing your preeminent Shiksha Guru and so on. That's how it looks to me. That it's more, because the philosophy doesn't require us to do this. The philosophy doesn't require of us that we establish a preeminent Siksha Guru position for Srila Prabhupada. He already has the founder Acharya position, which is the super position. He's already the governor. We don't have to make him the mayor. Preeminent Shiksha Guru is not a higher position than founder Acharya. So that would be my take on it. That Shiksha Gurus are people who come and give Shiksha and who enlighten and awaken and train the aspiring devotee. And the founder Acharya is the person who gives the entire background and framework and so on of the society. And I realize, we could get into a whole discussion of terminology, and one can justify, I'm sure, the preeminent Shiksha Guru designation. But for me, speaking subjectively, it doesn't really add anything and perhaps confuses the picture a little bit. That's my contrarian, those are my contrarian thoughts about the matter. How's that?
Oh, thank you very much. It came to mind because we were speaking last night about how when we read Srimad Bhagavatam, we read Bhagavad Gita as it is, how important it is to to look at it like this purport is telling us to look at it, like these words are coming from Krishna. They're not just someone's opinion. And that led me to ask my previous question.
Yeah, we probably said these are the law books, and where we take the words of Srila Prabhupada to be as good as Krishna's words. So nothing I've said is meant to diminish Srila Prabhupada's authority or lessen his authority. It's just to say that I don't know that that's the Shiksha Guru position, and a sort of legislated preeminent Shiksha Guru position strikes me as something of an innovation. Something of an, now that's like something you teach in the catechism, Srila Prabhupada is the preeminent Shiksha Guru of, and so everybody goes, yeah, she's the preeminent Shiksha. For me, he's the founder Acharya. That's what I'd put in the catechism. And I'd make it clear what the founder Acharya is, how important, how preeminent, and so on. But then who fills the Shiksha Guru position? Well, the person who acts as the Shiksha Guru. That's who's being talked about here. Somehow we make this that when you're hearing about Shiksha Guru here, you're really hearing about Prabhupada. And doesn't seem to me that's the intent here. The Shiksha Guru is the person who meets the disciple and does the things described here. That's my understanding of Shiksha Guru. And the Acharyas, all of them in the line, and most recently and most gloriously, Srila Prabhupada, are just that. They're the Acharyas. And the Shiksha Gurus and Diksha Gurus follow and serve the Acharya, and especially the founder Acharya. That's what seems congruent and sensible to me, and doesn't involve creating something new or crafting something new. Not entirely crafting, not entirely new. It's not, opposed, but to me that's how it works for me. I guess I'll leave it at that. That's my subjective take on the matter, and I'm open if others have other views or other, and maybe that it's not that one view has to be everyone's view. It's certainly not that my view has to be everyone's view, as we'll soon find out, probably by hearing from others. Meena.
Yes, thank you for answering, acknowledging my question. I see another problem with that. Just what I see is that they say that the Shiksha Guru and the Diksha Guru are the same. Their function is a little different, but they're on the same. So if Prabhupada can be everyone's Shiksha Guru, then why not everyone's Diksha Guru? I mean, I see a problem with that.
Why not Krishna then? If Shiksha Guru and Diksha Guru and Krishna are the same, why can't Prabhupada be Krishna? It's not that because, at least in our spiritual way of thinking, it's not that because A equals B, A is absolutely equal to B. The Sakshat Haritena Samasta Shastra, he's directly Krishna. How is that? Kintu Prabhuya Priya, because he's very dear to Krishna. So the Shiksha Guru and the Diksha Guru are the same, and yet if my Shiksha Guru is in Chicago, my Diksha Guru can still be in New York. It's not that he must be in Chicago because the Shiksha Guru and the Diksha Guru are the same. There's oneness and there's also difference. My looking at it is that, what is it in algebra, things equal to the same thing or equal to each other? So the initiating spiritual master is representing Krishna. He's as good as Krishna because he represents Krishna. And the instructing spiritual master is as good as Krishna because he's representing Krishna. So it's really Krishna who's appearing in now 3 forms. Kaviraj Goswami said 2, initiating and instructing, super soul and instructing. And now the instructing spiritual master is said to have 2 forms. And earlier, it was also said that the initiating spiritual master represents Krishna. So it's Krishna who's being represented essentially all over the place. He's represented in the books. He's represented by the founder Acharya. He's represented by the Shiksha Guru and the Diksha Guru. So it's really Krishna who's appearing in all of these forms to uplift the aspiring devotee or aspiring seeker. He's appearing in the form of the association of devotees. He's appearing in the form of the deity. He's appearing in the form of prasadam. He's appearing in the form of the society. So it's Krishna who's appearing in all of these different ways to deliver the conditioned soul. It's Krishna who's doing all of this. So the spiritual master is worshipped as good as Krishna because he's doing this function on behalf of Krishna. Is that all right?
I think what I was looking at, that's very all right. What I was looking at was that those devotees that prefer to think of that Prabhupada is their instructing guru. But if the instructing guru and the initiating guru are the same, I know you just described as differences, but so then the argument would be, well, why isn't Prabhupada everyone's initiating guru too? If he can be an instructing guru for everyone, then why can't he be an initiating guru for everyone? Because that's also a little bit of confusion on that in some
Yeah,
members.
I think that's exactly what it is. You know, if Prabhupada can be A, why can't he be B? It doesn't really work. That's the problem. That to try to sort of, what would you say, carve out for the founder Acharya the role of eternal initiating guru, and for that matter, eternal preeminent instructing guru, doesn't work. There was a group of devotees who stopped off for lunch at Govardhan, at our ISKCON Govardhan center, ashram. It was prearranged that they would come. They came from Bangalore, from Hare Krishna Hill, and many of them had just been initiated by Srila Prabhupada, you know, in 20 something or other. They'd just been initiated. So the devotees at the ashram were very accommodating and not very, not inclined to be combative and friendly, congenial. They said, oh, who are you initiated by? You know, who's your guru? And they said, Srila Prabhupada. And no, but who's your guru? Oh, Madhu Pandit. You know, because even though Srila Prabhupada is, you know, our initiating guru according to their notion, and even though he's the, you know, be all and the end all, still somebody has to tell them what to do. Someone has to inculcate within them that notion that Srila Prabhupada is their initiating guru and all of that. So effectively, that person becomes their instructing guru. In spite of all claims that the only guru is Prabhupada, that person becomes effectively the guru. He says, you know, do this or do that. He's the person who you're trying to please, because pleasing him means pleasing Prabhupada. So it's sort of, you can't get rid of it. It's like these, you know, all these other things that they're trying to do in the world, you know, make men and women equal. It doesn't really work. You know, they're equal in one sense, everybody's spirit, soul, and so on. But it's not that everyone behaves the same way. You're just not going to be able to retool nature in such a way that cows chase after bulls. You know, cows are cows and bulls are bulls. So this attempt to sort of construct artificially this picture of the world in which time freezes and Srila Prabhupada remains the initiating guru forever is problematic, because it's out of sync with what Srila Prabhupada teaches us in the books. It's a concoction. And one can make logical arguments for it and say, well, you know, if A equals B, then why can't B equal C? And if B equals C, why couldn't C equal D? And so on. But at the end, this is just not what our tradition teaches. It's not part of our Gaudiya Siddhanta. It's not part of what Srila Prabhupada includes in his books. It's not part of what he told us would happen after his departure. It's something new. That's the problem. Is that okay? Yeah. And again, it's not to minimize Prabhupada or say that his authority is any less. It's just to say that we can't invent things outside of his word, really, to suit our managerial constructs or to problem solve. And you can't problem solve in ISKCON by patching the philosophy. That's just, there are problems. We know there are problems. There's lots of problems. There are difficult problems, and there's things you can do about the problems, some of them better, some of them worse. But the one thing you can't do is just patch the philosophy and thereby solve the problem, because you then created a worse problem. Okay. Tulsi Priya did have her hand up, but the chat box is now full of chats. So let's see what we've got here. Chat. Oh my goodness, what happened there? I don't understand that. Hold on one moment. There it is. Okay. Prabin says, one is the liberated person fully absorbed in meditation, in devotional service. And the other spiritual master, other instructing spiritual master, is he who invokes the disciple's spiritual consciousness by means of relevant instructions. It seems that these two are Bhajananandi and Gosthyanandi. Could be. I can't say no. The fully absorbed in meditation does sound like Bhajananandi. Instructing the invoking spiritual consciousness in others is certainly what Gosthyanandis do. So I wouldn't say no. I can't, but I'm not clear enough on it. I haven't seen enough about it elsewhere to say, yes, that's right. But it does sound sensible, at least, and I haven't seen anything to contradict that. Panchatattva asks, would you explain the sentence in the purport, the very same sentence, in fact, two kinds of instructing spiritual masters, and then the next sentence, thus the instructions in the science of devotion are differentiated in terms of the objective and subjective ways of understanding. Well, as I confessed at the outset, these are somewhat obscure to me. Certainly a person who sets an example of deep meditation on the Lord and is fully liberated and absorbed in devotional service is an instructor for the devotee, instructive example. And the person who invokes the disciple's spiritual consciousness by means of relevant instructions, well, he's certainly a spiritual master. And again, I suspect that Srila Prabhupada may be referring to some particular terms here that I don't have access to because they'd be in the Bengali commentary. But I don't really know more about it than that. We read it and we see it and we think about it, but I don't have access to further authority about it. It's just, there it is. Objective and subjective ways of understanding. The instructions in the science are objective and subjective ways of understanding. I don't really understand that at all. I could hazard an explanation. I think I could do a good job of hazarding an explanation, but that's all it would be, my hazarded explanation. What sounds like a sensible story to me. So I think I'd just recommend, well, just read it and there it is, because I don't truly have a deeper understanding of it than that. Objective and subjective ways of understanding. No, the best I could do would be to say something logical and reasonable, but not necessarily right. Since the acharyas give their purports or instructions regarding devotional service, can they be called instructing gurus for all time? Why not? Srila Prabhupada said, Muni is our guru, Vyasadeva is our guru. So all the acharyas are our gurus. So why not? They're all eternally our gurus. Prabhupada said one time, Narad Muni is dragging us through the disciplic succession. That's what the guru does. So yes.
So they can be our Shiksha Gurus.
Yeah, they're Shiksha Gurus. They're instructing us. But this term Shiksha Guru is not really used that way. It's true.
No, just, from Caitamrta Lila. A Chai Guru, Shiksha Guru, A Amara. These six are my instructing spiritual masters.
Rup Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, and so on.
Yeah.
So he's been quite particular about it. You know, I just don't see this term Shiksha Guru used that way. I don't have a problem. Like, let's take Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. He's in our line. He's written books. Those books are available to us now, or they were available. They're available to us through Prabhupada's explanations. So he's instructing us, and so you can say he's our instructing guru. Fair enough. But we just don't see the term used that way in Prabhupada's literature. He doesn't use it for the Purvacharyas. It's sensible. It's not outrageous. It's just not the term it's not the way the term is usually used. That's what I see. How is it used? The person who invokes this disciple's spiritual consciousness by means of relevant instruction. Now you could say, yes, if I read the book, he may invoke my Krishna consciousness by relevant instructions. But what I usually see is it means a person who comes and does these things. That's what I've seen as far as how it's usually used. Chintamani, it was the instructing guru of Bilva Mangala Thakur. She said to him, oh, if you only had so much love for Krishna, how your life would be nice. So that instruction, activated his Krishna consciousness. The books are there, but they don't act in precisely the same way. If I misunderstand the book, that's my problem. But the spiritual master can actively say, what are you doing? What is this nonsense? Who told you to do this? Why are you doing this? Why are you such a fool? Now, the books can do that also. A person reads the book and he sort of gets it that I'm a fool. But generally, I don't see it used that way. I wouldn't object. Somebody says, well, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is my instructing guru. Yes, I understand. I don't have a problem with that. But at face value, the way the term appears to be used in our literature is the person who comes and instructs you about Krishna. Simple thing. You know, the person, you know, like person goes to biology class and he comes home and or, you know, he goes to college and he's studying biology and he comes back home and they said, oh, who's your professor? He says, oh, Darwin. Why? Because Darwin is the, you know, the founder acharya of modern biology. No, it was, you know, Dr. McGillicuddy. You know, he's my professor, and he's telling me what Darwin said, and you know why Darwin is great, and what a genius Darwin was, and so on and so on and so on. But it's Professor McGillicuddy who's my professor. So and if you say, no, actually, Professor McGillicuddy is not your professor, it's Darwin who's your professor. Yes, but not yes. Then again, if this becomes like a systematic way that we trivialize the position of the spiritual master in our society, then we're doing violence to the philosophy, perhaps for the sake of good management. But I would look, if I want to minimize the authority of the guru in some way, in terms of the managerial structure, I would look for a managerial way to do it. Say, well, you know, because you may be, you know, the absolute representative of Krishna, but when you're here in our place, you know, we have some rules. And so here they are. That's management. That's management. But I wouldn't try to retool the philosophy in some way to try to make management easier or to avoid managerial problems. I don't see that we're entitled to do that. Yes.
Would it be too far of this is back on the Panchatattva Prabhu's question, is it too far of a hazarding an explanation to point out the very apparent parallel between relevant instructions and subjective? Subjective being this is relevant to time, place, and circumstance change.
No, I don't think that works. I think you're doing what I wasn't willing to do.
That is too far of a hazard.
Excuse me?
That is too far of a hazard. Hazarding.
No, it's whether it's too far or not too far, it's a hazard.
Okay.
Something relevant doesn't have to be subjective. You know, you find a relevant evidence, may not, you find the murder weapon, it's not really a subjective item.
But just contextually, those two are being paralleled.
I don't know that they're being paralleled.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure clearly what's being paralleled here.
Okay.
If I had authority on it, I would speak to it or from it. There's a comment from Haridas, which I think is relevant. Srila Prabhupada seemed to use the term predecessor acharyas more often. And the impressions was that these personalities were our instructors or teachers. Yes, I'm completely in accord with what Haridas Prabhu says. That was the term that Prabhupada used, predecessor acharyas. We have to serve the predecessor acharyas. We have to hear from the predecessor. That was his term, predecessor acharyas, not shiksha gurus. Shiksha guru, yes, you can say that there are, but the operating term, the common term, the standard nomenclature that Srila Prabhupada used was predecessor acharyas, or in Sanskrit it would be purvacharya. That's what we call them typically. During Prabhupada's time, we never applied Siksha Guru really that way. Predecessor acharyas, exactly right. And yes, they are our instructors. Thank you for that, Haridas, very clear. Panchatattva, sometimes we hear these terms, Shiksha Guru and Shiksha Disciple. How can one be a disciple under instruction without correction, focused clarification, orders for service, personal guidance, etc.? Yeah, it's a point. And yet, I don't want to stretch it so far and say that the Shiksha guru has to be right there, pulling the disciples here, and so on. One word from the spiritual master may be enough for your whole life. But generally speaking, yes, this Shiksha means he's instructing, he's correcting, he's guiding, he's training. Even Srila Prabhupada in some letter accepted that his disciples were serving as Shiksha gurus. Someone was sort of pushing one of our ISKCON sannyasis as being, Shiksha guru, and Prabhupada accepted it, but he said Shiksha guru means who's supporting or like reinforcing, supporting what your Diksha guru said. Not that he's somebody different who's got, now he's like, can pull a trump card, that he's the instructing spiritual master. He's the servant of he helps you follow your initiating guru. Okay, Meena, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Fools rush in. My question has to do with, is there room here in trying to understand the guru? Is there room for heart-to-heart transmission, which would require them to be present?
Heart-to-heart transmission. You want to open that up a little bit?
Well, just my own personal experiences. I was able to hear whatever I was able to hear when the person was speaking, the instructor or the guider, like say Chintamani with Bilva Mangal Thakur. She was speaking from her heart. Okay, it came out, and it has a special potency to it. And we know that Lord Brahma, he received the original instructions through the heart from Krishna. So wouldn't that also be a factor in being able to hear from a representative of Krishna? There would be some heart-to-heart transmission?
Yeah, I think it's not, now that you've explained it that way, it's not esoteric, but the spiritual master knows the mind or the heart of the disciple. Even Prabhupada said, one time I asked Srila Prabhupada, how does if you do something, like if you're in New York and the spiritual master is in San Francisco, and you do something, basically some service, how does the spiritual master know? If you're making advancement, how does the spiritual master know? My question, I think, was, how do you get your brownie points? How do you get the credit? But Prabhupada just answered, he said, everyone will know. He said, face is the index of mind. So everyone will know. So we see sometimes, Bhakta George has got this look on his face and something's wrong. He just bit off more than he could chew, or somebody said something that set him off course, or something happened. Anyone can see it. Face is the index of mind. So if you're one of his guides, if you're one of his well-wishers, you stop for a second and say, Bhakta George, how are you doing? Is everything all right? And maybe he spills out what it is, and you say, oh, da 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 da. You give him some relevant instructions from Bhagavad Gita or from Srila Prabhupada's teachings, and help him. So that's heart to heart. You saw his need, and from your heart you responded. It doesn't mean something mystical, that transmission, like you see in those Mahabharata films where somebody raises their hand and this light beams out, and but it's practical, that you can see his heart, you can see his mind, and you say something. So that's active, that's practical, that awakens and trains someone. Yeah. Is that okay? Tulsi Priya, I don't understand. Chintamani spoke the words as instruction to Bilva Mangal. It was a spoken instruction, wasn't it? It's possible for someone to imagine something and think it's a heart rate. Yeah, so I think Meena Devi clarified that it didn't just mean a sort of a love beam from one heart to another, but something practical, something perhaps a little less mystical and fuzzy there. But there's also there is that the spiritual master speaks, and if we're sincere, we take that instruction to heart. We take it into our heart. It's not just meant to be something that he says and we say, okay, thank you, Gurudev. But Prabhupada's heard for brief instructions from his spiritual master and took it to heart. He made it his heart and soul. So it did penetrate the heart. I think Satyaraj Prabhu has a quotation as in his sign-off about words touching the heart. So the words of the spiritual master can very deeply touch the heart. It's not something so esoteric that it has to be relegated to the world of mysticism, but it's also practical, and it also is personal, and it does involve the heart. I hope that's okay. You have a comment or a question also at 8:01, and I know I've kept you hanging there, so my apologies for that. My sense is that we should probably, it's not going to be a short question, I know. It's going to be a question that's going to take us into 8:05 and beyond.
I would like to bring it up on Monday because I feel like it might answer the question of this idea of Prabhupada as the Shiksha Guru, but I'm not sure.
Well, we'll give you 4 minutes of overtime.
Okay. So when you were speaking, it was reminding me of a purport in the CC Madhya Lila 19:152. And it talks about the Bhakti Lata Beach, which was a point that had kind of exercised me for a long time. And then I found this purport. And Prabhupada says, Bhakti Lata Beach means the seed of devotional service. Everything has an original cause or seed. For any idea, program, plan, or device, there is first of all the contemplation of the plan, and that is called the bija or seed. The methods, rules, and regulations by one is perfectly trained in devotional service constitute the bija. The Bhakti Lata Bija or seed of devotional service. This Bhakti Lata Bij is received from the spiritual master by the grace of Krishna. So what I was thinking about is that Prabhupada created this society, and all of his books and his instructions, those are the Bhakti Lata Bij for the society, but each of us is like an individual, and so we require our own Bhakti Lata Bij from our spiritual masters so that we can progress according to our natures, our propensities, our whatever constellation of conditioning where we're at. That spiritual master, that initiating spiritual master, gives us a Bhakti Lata Bij through his tailoring of the Bhakti Lata Bij that he got from Prabhupada for our particular circumstances. So I feel like a lot of times when people talk about Prabhupada being the preeminent Shiksha Guru, there's a bit of sentimentality there, because if he's really the guru, if he's really the Shiksha Guru, then you study his books. And then if you study his books, you see he talks about parampara. And to me, there's no underestimating the importance of parampara. So I was just wondering if you think that take is valid or if I'm hazarding.
Yeah, that sounds all right to me. As you were speaking, the thought came to mind that essentially Krishna is expanding himself as the Diksha Guru and the Diksha Guru and the Shiksha Guru. And we can say that Prabhupada is expanding himself as so many Diksha Gurus and Shiksha Gurus. Who are all of these people? They're acting as expansions of Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada wrote to, there was one girl in the Bahamas in the 1960s who was chanting Hare Krishna and corresponding with Prabhupada. And Prabhupada, she asked essentially, if I recall, is the mantra bona fide? The way because I haven't, I heard it from the devotees. Prabhupada said the devotees heard it from me and you're hearing it from them. So the potency is there. So our temple presidents and preachers and gurus and sannyasis and book distributors, they're all acting as Srila Prabhupada's expansions. And then there's expansions of the expansions, and then expansions of the expansions. The image in Chaitanya Charitamrta is the Chaitanya tree, Shaka Upashaka, the branches, and then the branches of the branches, the sub-branches. So, and what are they? They expand the tree. What is a tree? The tree means the tree with its branches and their branches and so on and so on. So then the tree becomes exfoliated. It becomes lush. It becomes whatever my tree expert here would call it. But it's it's in that way. So and that's proper. That. And when the tree, it's mentioned there about the sons of Advaita Acharya, when they disconnected themselves from the trunk, they became useless. They became useless. But all the branches that stayed connected were wonderful. So when we stay connected to Srila Prabhupada and give credit to Srila Prabhupada for everything that's coming through us from him, then we're acting properly. If we do something on our own, that's our own misfortune and the misfortune of anyone who follows us. But as long as we present what he presented and give full credit to him, then we're servants of the servant. And at 8:07, we bid you good evening. Thank you all very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
Hare
Maharaj.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Jai Hari Bol, Hari Bol.